guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Man, it feels so good to say that because I haven't filmed a video in such a long time. I was kind of going through a lot in my personal life, and honestly I still kind of am, and so because of that it kind of affected my uploading schedule and I wasn't really feeling motivated to make videos. However, I'm trying to get back into a normal routine and I do love making YouTube videos, so I am back. But I will not be promising 2 videos a week for the next little while, just as things kind of sort out. But once things do go back to normal, then I will continue uploading twice a week as per usual. But for now, I'm just going to focus on getting at least 1 video up a week, either on Monday or Friday. But anyways, with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. The case that we are going to be talking about today is the real life case that actually inspired the movie The Changeling. Now, there are 2 Changeling movies. One came out in the 80s and one came out more recent. The more recent Changeling movie is based on this case, and the one in the 80s is based on something completely different. This case takes place in Los Angeles, California, and takes place on March 10th, 1928, when a 9-year-old boy by the name of Walter Collins headed off to the movie theaters by himself. His mother, Christine, was a phone operator, and on that day in particular, she was just extremely busy and was not able to accompany her son to the movies. However, not making time to go to the movie theater with her son was a decision that Christine would grow to regret for the rest of her life, because Walter Collins had never returned home after going to the theater. I actually covered a case recently where something very similar happened, but despite Walter Collins going missing on that day when he left to go to the movie theater, his mother did not report him missing for a total of 5 days, meaning that this young boy did not get reported missing until March 15th, 1928, when really he had disappeared on March 10th. Now, he was only 9 years old, so I really don't know the thought process going into this. It's not like he was an adult who could have, gone to a friend's house or something like that. He was only 9 years old, so really, where could he have gone? March 15th, when Christine went down to the police station to report her son missing, she was not taken seriously at all. The police really just kind of brushed her off. They thought that maybe this 9-year-old boy had just ran away and that he would be home very, very soon. However, as time progressed without any sign of Walter Collins, that is when everybody started to grow extremely concerned, thinking that something much more sinister had happened to this young boy. As news started to spread about the missing Walter Collins, many people started to call into police saying that they had seen him absolutely everywhere. One of these alleged sightings was in particularly interesting, especially in this case, as somebody had reported seeing a boy fitting Walter Collins' description at a Glendale gas station. However, this was not your average sighting, because when the people called into police, they said that the boy had been completely wrapped from his neck down in newspaper, and the only thing that you could see of him was his head. The police started following these leads, but nothing really concrete that led anywhere would come into the police station for 5 months. In August, again 5 months after Walter Collins had vanished, the police got a phone call from DeKalb, Illinois, saying that there was a young boy who was there who claimed to be Walter Collins. Obviously, Christine was absolutely over the moon, thinking that she had finally found her son, and so she paid a large lump sum of money to get this young boy shipped from Illinois all the way back to California. After this young boy arrived in California, Christine took him home, but after spending a very short period of time with this young boy, she brought him back to the police station and said that although this boy really resembled Walter Collins, she did not believe that this was her son. But the police at this time definitely did not believe her. They didn't want to hear anything she had to say, and they even said to her, I quote, "Take the boy home and try him out." And I think that at this point, Christine was probably just tired of arguing with the police and wishful thinking. She was probably really hoping that this was her son. And so because of that, she did take the boy home, and he would end up staying with her for a total of 3 weeks. After After those 3 weeks were up, Christine was absolutely positive that this boy was not her son. No matter what the police said, no matter what this boy said, she was absolutely positive. And so because of this, she took the boy back down to the police station, and this time she brought along with her some very damning evidence. She brought along with her Walter Collins' dental records, and these dental records did not match the dental records of the boy that was living with her. However, the police were still not having any of this, and the chief of police actually committed Christine to a psych ward under what is known as Code 12. And that basically was saying that Christine was an inconvenience, or she was a person who was just way too difficult to deal with. Christine was placed in a psych ward, and she was under a very strict evaluation for a total of 10 days. And in my opinion, I definitely think that they probably would have tried to have keeping her in the psych ward for a longer period of time. However, within those 10 days, the young boy who was claiming to be Walter Collins confessed that he was actually not Walter Collins. The young boy who had been staying with Christine Collins was actually a 12-year-old boy by the name of Arthur Hutchinson Jr. And he was originally from Iowa, and he just had a very horrible, unhappy, abusive, awful home life. And when news started to spread about the disappearance of Walter Collins, people kept telling Arthur that there was a striking resemblance between the two. After hearing how much Arthur and Walter looked alike on a regular basis, Arthur had this brilliant idea that he was going to impersonate the lost boy, and he was going to use that to get him from Iowa to California. Obviously, after this came to light, they could no longer keep Christine in the psych ward, so she was released, and once she was released, she charged or put a lawsuit against the police department. And she had ended up winning and was supposed to be getting $10,800 from the police department, and she planned on using this money to fund a search for her son. However, she never ended up being paid that money. This case continued on even after this whole mess, and a lot of leads and sightings and things along those lines kept rolling into police over the years, but unfortunately nothing really concrete or solid had ever come into the police. However, there are some very convincing theories in this case that I'm going to be sharing with you guys now. So usually in these types of videos, I will dive very deep into like 3 theories. However, there really aren't that many theories that I can dive too deeply in this case. But there is one theory that I personally believe is what happened, and it is the more widely believed theory in this case. And so because of that, I'm going to be talking about that theory first, just because it's larger, and then I'm going to share some of the other theories closer to the end of the video. Some people, myself being one of them, believe that Walter Collins had fallen victim to an absolutely brutal and sick serial killer by the name of Gordon Stewart Northcott. Now, I'm going to present this theory a little bit different, like I already mentioned, because I really want to dive into the case of Gordon Northcott and kind of tie all of these cases together. Okay, so Gordon Northcott in the year 1928 had lived on the outskirts of Wineville, California. But 2 years before that, in 1926, Gordon's nephew, who I believe was 12 years old, named Sanford Clark, had come from Canada to live with Gordon. He was sent there by his family because Gordon had asked for his nephew to come and help him on the farm. They thought it would be a good experience for him, and so they let him take the young boy to his farm with him. However, the young boy, Sanford Clark, had never gone through immigration, and so because of this, technically speaking, he was there illegally. Now, like I already mentioned, Sanford had been living with Gordon for a few years at this point. And around this time, one of Gordon's neighbors had called the police on Gordon because they said that they had seen Gordon brutally beating Sanford on multiple occasions. On top of that, Sanford's mother was very worried about her son because he had not been supposed to stay with Gordon for such an extended period of time. He had been living with him at this point for, I believe, 2 years, when he was just supposed to go there for a few months to kind of help out his uncle. but he kept him. Gordon kept Sanford for an extended period of time. Like I mentioned, it had been about 2 years at this point since Sanford had been home. So because of this, Sanford's mother sent Sanford's sister, Jessie, who was older than Sanford, to Wineville, California to kind of check up on her younger brother and just make sure that everything was okay. After staying at Gordon's house for just a few very short days, Jessie returned back home to Canada, where she told her mom that she was absolutely terrified, not only for Sanford, but of Gordon. So her and her mother sat down and they talked about how they were going to get Sanford home, and they decided to call the immigration's office because, again, Sanford was living with Gordon illegally, and so this would get him deported back to Canada where he could live with his family. On August 21st, 1928, police came to Gordon's home to get Sanford and deport him back to Canada. However, Gordon somehow saw the police coming, and so he fled the home. However, he told Sanford to not mention anything that he had been through, and if he did, he would kill him. But Sanford was a very smart boy, and he knew that once he was with authorities and once Gordon was completely gone, he would open up to police and tell them exactly what he had been through and what had been going on with Gordon. Sanford opened up to police and said that he had been assaulted multiple times, both sexually and physically, by Gordon, and that Gordon had forced him to help him kill other young boys, along with Gordon and Gordon's mother, Sarah Lewis Northcott. After fleeing the home, Sarah, Gordon's mother, and Gordon Northcott had fled to Canada to try and hide out in order to not be caught, but luckily they were eventually apprehended and arrested. Sanford Clark was brought back to the ranch several weeks later, where he was able to kind of direct police into the direction where the boys' remains were burned. Gordon Northcott never actually ended up confessing to these crimes. However, there was so much evidence found within the home and on the ranch's property that it kind of confirmed that Sanford was telling the whole complete truth. But however many victims Gordon had is completely unknown. What is known is that he would use Sanford as kind of like a lure, and he would go into town and use Sanford to pick up these young boys. He would get them into the vehicle, and then he would take them back to the ranch where he would sexually assault them, sometimes several times, before murder. Now, the reason that we are talking about Gordon Northcott is because it is strongly believed by many people that Walter Collins could have possibly fallen victim to Gordon Northcott. It is said that he picked up a boy fitting Walter Collins' description. He brought him back to the ranch where he brutally assaulted the boy several times and raped him and then murdered him with an axe. However, there isn't any information on the internet to know whether this was 100% confirmed or not, but Sarah Northcott did say, well, on trial, that they had murdered Walter Collins. However, she did take this statement back. She recanted her statement about that. But because she had said that, she had known the boy's name, and the boy that they had picked up did strikingly look like Walter Collins, this is probably the most widely believed theory in this case. There is only one other theory in this case that I find is worth talking about, and that is that Walter Collins' father believed that somebody had it out for him and then went after his son. So at this time, Walter Collins' father was in prison, which is why Christine was a single mother. And while he was in prison, he was working in the cafeteria, and his job was to report back to the officers and the people who ran the jail and tell them about the violations that were done by the other inmates. And so obviously because of this, his father would have had a lot of enemies within the prison, and so he believed that somewhere along this line, he had pissed off the completely wrong person, and to get back at his father, these people decided to kidnap Walter Collins and do whatever to him that would be completely unknown, because unfortunately no remains or anything like that of Walter Collins has ever been found to this day. And this case again took place in the 1920s, so you would think that this young boy's remains would have shown up by now. These cases that involve young children are just absolutely heartbreaking. I can't even imagine what Walter's mother must have been going through this entire time. Not only had she lost a son, but then she was forced to bring a strange boy who she knew was not her son into her home and care for him as if he was for an extended period of time. Then she was made to feel crazy for not believing that that strange boy was her son. It was just an absolute mess. I can't even imagine the heartbreak and trauma that that poor woman must have gone through. But guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. I do apologize if this video was a little bit shorter. I kind of just put it together over the last little while I was going through what I was going through. And I do just want to apologize if I sound a little bit weird. I haven't really had a normal voice for the last like 4 days and I don't know what's going on. But hopefully in the next video my voice will be back to normal and I can make a longer video for you guys. But if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.